Let's take the conversation forward. Professor Utomi is a political economist and the chairman of the PAFRAC, the Pan-African Private Sector Trade and Investment Committee of the African Union, designed as a think tank for the heads of state on private sector policies with Afri-Exim Bank Secretariat. Professor Utomi joins us from Ikoyi area of Lagos. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight. The president has recently become the chief marketer of Nigeria for investment. He's been on the road across several countries to do this in the last few weeks. And we've heard and understand that this is not coincidental, or this is not happenstance. It's actually deliberate. What's your view on that effort?
Well, every effort makes sense relative to the preparation for the effort. I think that marketing a country is a good thing, make it more attractive, but you know that the narrative, unfortunately at this point, is not great on Nigeria. Just yesterday, I was meeting with the Japanese ambassador to Nigeria in Abuja, and I was trying to raise a number of issues around investments in Nigeria. And we talked about the last TCAT and why, for example, Japanese companies are preferring to build cars, assemble cars, whatever, in Ghana or elsewhere. And, you know, he was very fair, very frank, and talked about challenges in doing business with Nigeria. The getting a ship into Nigerian ports, going, you know, discharging the risks and the problems, quite frankly, are not the best. So you need to do some homework. You need to clean up first before you try selling. Otherwise, you would be wasting the effort at selling. I mean, you know of a famous case of a major European investor who flew into Lagos a few years ago in his private jet, met the kind of reception from public officials at the airport that was untowardly, and he turned around, went back into his plane and took off. There's a lot of work that we have to do. I was in Cairo just 4 days ago to launch, in my role as PAFTRAC chair, some of the studies that have been commissioned to look at intra-African trade and all of that. What this threw up is that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to make, look, the narrative may be unfair on Nigeria, let's be frank. There's the danger of a single story. The story that is out there is Nigeria is you know, oh, Boko Haram, there's insecurity everywhere, and so on and so forth. It might be an unfair narrative, but that's the perception there. So if you're going to brand your country to make it more appealing to potential investors, the work begins at home. We've got to clean a number of things up. We've got to make the reception at the airport. I mean, I was teaching at Lagos Business School just about 2 weeks ago, a global CEOs program. And they were making fun of the Nigerian airports that they came through in Lagos. I mean, these are people from different parts of Africa, chief executives in Tanzania, in Kenya, in South Africa. And, you know, I feel very sad when this is the kind of feedback that you get. So we need to do work first at home before we try and sell something. Otherwise, we fall into the danger, unfortunately, of that single narrative, which is debilitative of possibilities of Nigeria getting investors. I mean, 2 years ago, Forbes magazine, I think on May 28 or so, published an article on investments in Nigeria and described Nigeria as a money-losing machine. When institutions are such that you don't know what the minister will do next, you don't know what the governor of this agency or the other will do, and you just decide, okay, it's safer to go elsewhere because there's too much uncertainty in the Nigerian environment. These are the things we should first tackle. before we go trying to get people to invest in Nigeria.
So, president in itself is not a bad idea, but you were saying invariably that Nigeria needed to have done a few of his homework before reaching out to the world. Well, I mean, the president has started that effort anyways. You can't roll back that effort, can you? But the question is, what the president said in Durban, he said, we came fully prepared. It does look like a word of courage and that of assurance about the preparedness of government saying, come to Nigeria for investment. How do you see that kind of comment or that kind of preparations coming from the Nigerian team to that conference?
I would like to see Nigeria fully prepared. I am always marketing Nigeria wherever I go and trying to break that danger of a single story. But the point remains that we have plenty of work to do. Intra-African trade is very important. The cooperation is critical. Look, if we're going to play in global trade, if we're going to create the jobs that we need to create in our country, we've got to be able to make things easy to aggregate across borders. We've got to bring together the African private sector such that we can produce in different countries, aggregate this production, have a huge trading company like Marubeni did for Japan, which will then sell the things that we produce to the world. I mean, if you want a couple of small Nigerian producers to sell blue jeans, for example, to Walmart, it's not going to be a successful deal because Walmart will need 100,000 blue jeans every Monday morning delivered before 8 a.m. in a particular location in the United States and so on and so forth. We don't have that kind of production base, but if we are able to organize producers in Nigeria, organize producers in Benin, in Togo, in Ghana, and we aggregate these productions, and a huge trading company delivers this output to Walmart, then they can do it and do 100,000 pieces every Monday morning at 8 a.m. without fail. Now that's the kind of engagement that we need to be working through. That's why AFTA is a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, we came very late to the game from Nigeria's point of view, and we lost out in a number of things, but that's okay. That's yesterday. The thing is to look forward. What are the opportunities for building growth in this economy through trade and investment opportunities that exist on the continent? There are plenty of opportunities, but we need champions who can organize the whole value chain. People who are passionate and say, look, sesame seed value chain, Sheung Okibaloye, you have to ensure that we sell X number of metric tons of processed sesame seeds that can go straight on the hamburger bun. Every hamburger sold in Europe in the next 3 years must have sesame seeds coming from Nigeria. Sheung, if you can't deliver on that, you're fired. We need those kinds of champions who will dream, eat, and get the support to make those kinds of things happen. Yes, a head of state traveling to market that becomes a lot more sensible, reasonable, valuable, gets a return when that kind of thing is organized. We've got to take value chains that we want to compete around. We've got to look at what the impediments are to competing on those value chains. And we've got to make sure that we are truly competitive on those value chains. The challenges everywhere, but none is impossible to overcome. We just need passionately committed people who recognize that we can trade our way out of poverty onto prosperity. That's what our country is desperately in need of today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who should spearhead it, but I think it's an obvious answer to that question. But Prof, what do you make of the inflation figures that just came from October? 15.99%, that is a current inflation figure in Nigeria, and that the fall is the 7th consecutively for the past few months. What do you make of that compared to the food prices and the present state of things?
Well, you know, the two biggest things on Nigeria's import bill today is petrol and food. Incredible, because those are two things Nigeria should be exporting. Because we have not managed the foreign exchange market the way we should manage it, it is challenged, and we are getting a significant depreciation of the exchange rate, and this is translating into inflation from the importation of food. And this is destabilizing the ordinary consumer. So it's good to throw out statistics and talk about movement in one direction or the other. The question is, how does the man on the street feel? The man on the street feels that his inflation is galloping away because his basket is skewed significantly in these survival times towards food. And food inflation is at a runaway level because of insecurity. We're not having enough farming. And you know what's even more frightening is that there's a lag from the scenario today to when it really truly kicks in. Because you're going to find a little down the line that the fact that we are not producing will increase the challenge of food price inflation in our country. And so we need to ramp up things in terms of producing. I hear that some numbers were thrown out about all the monies that are being put out by the central bank for agriculture and all of that, and they say there's a very little amortization rate for all that money on the one hand. On the other hand, most people who are really in agriculture are saying, we don't see any money. What are they talking about? It shows that our bad politics is kicking in again. People who are actually not producing are probably the ones getting these monies, and its impact is not being felt in ameliorating these inflationary pressures that are coming from the low level of agricultural output, which is why our food importation is rising and creating more and more problems. So, how do we facilitate production? How do we use clusters? Okay, there's insecurity around the country. Can we have protected areas where we make sure there's no insecurity? If we can't protect the whole country, there can be these clusters, these areas that are fully protected, and you can ensure that the agricultural inputs that go into those protected areas will lead to huge jumps in output. Again, I was at a Chinese facility in Abuja over this weekend where they are doing a dam. There's all kinds of agricultural output, and they have a school for farming. I mean, the Chinese are now teaching us how to grow yams, imagine. But that's what's happening because our research institutes have not been allowed to do what they should be doing. So the Chinese are trying to show us that we can produce 4 times the yield that we are getting from yam cultivation in our country. If such kinds of areas then get plenty of support and get protected in these clusters, then we'll get the kind of output of food that will ameliorate the rate of inflation as compared to what we see. A person who is dealing with the fact that he can hardly feed his family because of food price inflation wouldn't care a damn whether you say it has come down 7 months running and is now at 15.99 or whatever it is that it is. He just knows that he cannot buy food that the money he has in his pocket is too small for what he needs to feed his family. That's the real inflation.
Prof, quickly, I just have less than just about a minute. I'd like to drag you into politics. You leave economics for a moment, and it's about this debate on direct and indirect primaries. I know that back in Delta State, you participated in primaries, and at some point, the venue of the primary changed. I mean, you were in one venue. The venue has changed to somewhere else. From your own experience in politics,
that is not completely correct, but the process was a farce anyway. Yeah, but okay. Shaun, later this week, I will hold a press conference to introduce direct democracy. Politics in Nigeria has been literally a criminal activity, let's be honest to ourselves. And Nigerian people, because of it, have given up on the political process. They don't believe in elections. They think that the whole thing is farcical. And the legitimacy crisis that has come from it is preventing our political process from being able to execute, to implement policies that will improve people's lives, because people don't trust the people in power. They always say, who elected them? So all this will change. We must make it change. And we begin the process this week when we announce using technology, a process that will enable us evaluate all people in public office, begin even recall of public officers. We will get an INEC list and get those voters to vote on their senators, to vote on their governors, and begin to ask them to use it to recall these people because they're not acting in their interest. Primary direct democracy. And we will see it play out in the next couple of months.
All right. Professor Utomi, political economist, thank you so much. It's indeed a pleasure having you talk to us tonight on the program. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.